You're listening to
Split the Defense,
a Toronto Maple Leafs, Colorado Avalanche, and NHL podcast. Hosted by Jordan Webster, Craig Pearce, and producer Ted Evans.
Split the Defense
Is presented by LaForest Electrical Contractors. Professional and efficient service since 2004. Serving the Kingston and surrounding areas.
Welcome to Split the Defense Hockey Podcast. I'm Webby, alongside producer Ted and CP, welcoming listeners from the greater Kingston area as we broadcast from the Chumleys Kingston Tower of Power on Amherst Island Radio, 101.3 FM, CJAI, and CJAI.CA. Please drop a like on this episode if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube, and rate it 5 stars on whatever podcasting platform you're consuming from. The Toronto Maple Leafs have locked up William Nylander for 8 more years, gentlemen. So
Finally
last
done.
week, Willie said it would be a dream come true to sign and stay in Toronto. Well, now his dreams have changed after he landed the largest total contract in Leafs history at $92 million over 8 years, as per Chris Johnston. The deal includes a full no movement clause with a significant signing bonus payments. So now, William Nylander says his ultimate dream would be to win the Cup and retire as a Toronto Maple Leaf. Big news here in Toronto, boys. So, Willie, 8 more years, 11 and a half. We talked about that a lot. I'd personally like to say I called it. I knew he was going to make that money. I wonder how much he would have. I wonder how much the Leafs would have saved had they have just been willing to up their offer in the offseason.
Yeah, you mean like not give him the full 11.5, but not offer him 9? You know, to give him a 10.5 million.
10.5. Yeah, you
Yeah.
might have saved a mil.
Yeah,
A whole schmill.
for sure. I totally agree with that. They say like everyone's saying the number didn't move, but the number that has moved, like you said, is the Leafs offer. So yeah, you're probably right. If they had come in like more realistic, I know that like they were probably trying to get him at 10. So like if they came in at 8.5, 9. You know, and he's sitting at 11.5, then that's just like, no, there's no point even discussing it at the moment. Like, but yeah, come in at 10, then at least there's a conversation happening. Yeah.
There might have been. They might have saved themselves a little bit of money. So the way that this deal was structured, it is 8 by 11.5 for cap purposes, but there's $69 million in signing bonuses paid. Nice. And $27 million of contract paid, $27 million of that contract paid in the first 2 years. So the way his contract works is in 24-25, he's got $3.5 million in salary and a $10 million signing bonus. 25-26, $3.5 million salary, $10 million signing bonus. 26-27, which is where the CBA ends, and they're potentially going to go into a lockout if they can't reach an agreement with the new collective bargaining agreement. He's got a $1 million salary, $11.5 million signing bonus. 27-28, which is the same case potentially, is a $1 million $1 million salary and a $10.5 million signing bonus. So he's made that contract lockout proof. After that, it's a $6 million salary, $5 million signing bonus, $6 million salary, $5 million signing bonus. But in the tail end of the years, when we think maybe this contract might not look so good, it's only a $1 million salary in 2030. Holy crap, that's a long time away.
Yeah.
2030-31, that's a $1 million salary, $9 million signing bonus. 2031-32, it's a $1 million salary, $8 million signing bonus. So most of this is being paid out in signing bonuses right away, and at the end of the deal by July 1st, a team could have him in his last year for only $1 million, and they could take him a year before that, and they would only have to pay him $9 million to get 2 years, or like $10 million to get 2 years of William Nylander. So, I mean, that's potentially tradable near the end of the contract. The crazy thing is, he's got a full no movement clause, so if he doesn't want to go anywhere, he doesn't have to now, boys. He's got full say. This is no 10-team, 5-team, 15-team. This is Willie's say, or he does not go. Full no movement clause. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, in general, it's like he's gotten absolutely anything he'd possibly want. You know, he's gotten the max amount of dollars. He's gotten all the signing bonuses that he wants. I guess like the only thing I guess is that million at the end that maybe they can trade him for, but that's not really like that's not much. Like that's in 2032 that's when that would come into effect. So like that doesn't matter to me. Like really, he got the sun and the moon here. You know, absolutely everything he wanted. What like it that's my opinion on the contract. Like I still think you had to sign him. Like they were put in a corner here. Brad Treliving wasn't going to lose a guy to free agency. That's kind of like the bad rap that he has coming to Toronto. So he's not going to have that happen again. I don't know. It's hard to. Then I love William Nylander. I think he's a guy who really changes the game. But it's just a tough pill to swallow for like 11 and a half just seems like so much, and you're paying for like performance of 4 months. And if you look at his entire career, and like even if you look at the last 4 years, like he's not an $11.5 million player. So hopefully you can keep this up.
Yeah, that's the only thing that concerns me is that he's gotten better every year, and if he gets better next year, imagine he gets better. He's better next year,
Jeez.
then we're not saying anything about this. Even if he stays the same as he is this year and he can ride the same pace this year, 50-plus goal player, 100-plus point player, then I could think that, yeah, that this contract's going to be great for years to come. And I don't see, like, he's not a heavy guy. That's not exactly his game. I could see him playing his style of game, scoring goals, for a bunch of years. This contract could age out nicely in year 6, 7, and 8 even. He could probably still play his game quite well. But at $11.5 million, you got to wonder how much the cap's going to go up and what the percentage of the cap will be at that point for you to justify that it's still a good contract all that way. The only thing is I don't really think they had a choice but to give him the 8 years. I think if you were to try and give him 6, which is the safer bet, then there's a whole bunch of other teams that can now offer and match that. So you're not going to get the same value of the extra year, paying him 11.5, where now it would be 13.1 from another team signing him over 7 to pay him that amount of money. Another team could be willing to eat the risk later on if the Leafs weren't. So the Leafs had to be the team to eat that risk at the end of the contract and pay him for those 8 years. But I totally think it's worth it. Honestly, at the end of the day, like everybody says, I've seen so much kickback from podcasters, from Twitter, from people I've talked to just around that have just this afternoon that have said it's too much. William Nylander shouldn't be making $11.5 million. And you know what? In a couple of years, I don't think there's going to be a discount. I don't think it's going to look like this contract that William Nylander's under, where he's making 6.9 and we're all going, oh my God, he's so overvalued. But I think we might all be able to look at it and go, yeah, no, that's good. That's good value. That's what he should make. And that's what other wingers who perform like him do make in this league now, because money's going to start going up all around once we actually get into this 5% increase every year. So I think in a few years' time, you're going to see a whole bunch of other skilled wingers signing for around that, or maybe even more, which we'll talk about later in the show. And at that point, you'll probably be able to say, you know what, his contract's justified. And it makes sense that he signed for that back then.
Plus, imagine they win a cup in those few years. Then how justified is it? You'll be like, it was worth it. If he factors in any way into that cup win, which he will, because it's William Nylander, if they win a cup, he'll be a big part of it. It'll be like, damn right, it was worth it.
The thing, like I think the best case scenario is that it's worth it. You know, like you're never gonna get value on this contract. You know, best case is that it was a fine deal and it was worth doing. But there's like even just below best case, you know, is that like, you know, he turns into what he was last year and it's more of like a 90-point player, which is like still not bad. It's just like slightly overpaying. The cap goes up. And hopefully you get a discount on John Tavares in like 2 years' time, which actually he kind of hinted at during his interviews today.
Will. Yeah, he will.
And so, like, I think you have to kind of look at the bigger picture here. And bigger picture, I'd rather William Nylander on the team than Mitch Marner. And so like I would rather get him locked up, and then we can decide if we want this many players making this much around Mitch Marner's case, because Marner's not as much of a, like, Nylander can just change a game. I think that's something that very few players have, even the best players. And so like I guess I would consider that maybe my justification for that is that he's one of those guys that at any moment, whether it's pressure or not, like he can, win a game for you. And I think like that's important. And I think he's learning more and more how to do that. Like I like William Nylander more and more every year. Like I'm a guy who like really likes this player. It's just the number is just it is what it is at this point. I'm not gonna be upset about it. It's just who doesn't want their players signed for less, right? Like that's just the thing. You always want your players to take a discount. It just seems in Toronto that never happens, and it all started with Kyle Dubas and Shanahan when they started all this stuff. And Mitch Marner's making more than he should be at this point, and I think that's where it all stems from. Is you were never going to sign William Nylander for less than Marner, and so
and you want to blame anybody for this? It's the previous regime.
Yeah.
It's them paying Matthews and paying Marner and giving them the sun and the moon and the stars, and then squeezing William Nylander, holding him out. He has to hold out till December to get to a number that is reasonable. Could you imagine he'd be making what they wanted to pay him in June and July and August of that year when he signed in December? It would have been like $6 million, right? And it would have been, it's silly. He got an extra $900K or something. But if you want to blame anybody, it's the previous Dubas and company that gave everything to everybody else and squeezed William Nylander. So now the next contract that he's on, he's not going to give in again. He's going to say, like, I've performed just as good. I mean, he hasn't put up as many points as Mitch Marner. He hasn't scored as many goals as Austin Matthews. But this year in particular, and every year in his trajectory, he's gotten better. And he seems to be more dynamic at this point than Mitch Marner. And if you gave Mitch Marner the sun and the moon and the stars on his last contract, well, now you kind of have to pay a little bit of tax to William Nylander on this next contract. And that's not Brad Treliving's fault. That's Dubas and company's fault, who's no longer here because they already squeezed the kid because he already gave you the contract with the deal on it. Now it's time to get paid.
Yeah, and they didn't just screw up William Nylander's or Mitch Marner's. Like all of those contracts, like even Matthews, they didn't hold out as long as they could have. Like they basically took 3 months to sign William Nylander, which they could have taken like 12 months. And he even alluded to that in his interview today. It's like how much earlier they started on this contract versus last. So like it obviously still sits with them, like how that last one went. And like it's not revenge, but it's justification in his mind. It's like he should have been making more, and he hasn't budged in his negotiations. And I feel like, he's just, and he never had to. Like this was what he wanted. It's what he got. Like it is what it is.
I think he deserves it too.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I like that hockey players are starting to get paid more money because you get to compare them more to the bigger sports, right? And so, like, I think the salary cap has to go with it, and that's a big part of this. Is I despise the salary cap the way that it's designed right now, and that's why we're arguing over the amount of money versus the actual player. Because like when I talk about baseball with friends, like the money is part of it. It's like, wow, look at these billionaires just paid all this money, but like who cares? Like this player on my team, and you just get straight into that, and like you don't care how much luxury tax they paid. And it's still accomplishing the same thing. But I just hate that we even have to discuss the contract as much as we are. Like it should just, unless you're paying Ohtani $900 million or whatever he got, like the contract should just be peanut. Like it's just a moot point. It's just, but the player, like William Nylander, I think that this team should design their team around Matthews and Nylander. And so I don't care about the money as much. Like they got to figure that out. And there's ways to do that. It's 1 year of it being kind of shitty. And after that, it kind of, you have room to redesign how you do things and make it work better.
Yeah. And so closing thoughts on this, Brad Treliving said, this is from Luke Fox on Twitter. Brad Treliving says, I know how hard it is to get talent. Every dollar matters because we live in a cap world. So you folks can all debate it. and I'm sure it will be hotly debated. But at the end of the day, when you get a top player signed, it's a good day. So it's a good day. William Nylander, 8 more years, $92 million for the man. He's very rich. He's very much a Toronto Maple Leaf for more than likely the remainder of his career, if not playing some twilight years somewhere else, or even signing back for his twilight years. Who knows at that point? We'll have to see. But Willie is around for a long, long time. So the only other guy that I know that signed for a really long time recently, everybody seems to be taking shorter deals. This is Morgan Riley, signed a couple years ago for 7.5. I think his deal actually kicked in last year for his first year, and he took 8 years at 7.5.
Yeah.
Morgan Riley this year, he's just a saint of a human. He's a saint of a player. This year he's played 36 games. He's got 0 penalty minutes. Can you believe that? Morgan Riley, who's involved in everything, playing all situations, 0 penalty minutes.
Yeah, and he's played a little, like he's got an edge to his game in like the later part of last year and this year. So it's hard to believe he hasn't even gotten like a tripping penalty. And I won't even accuse him that he's not playing the wrong way or like the right way, because like you watch the games, like Riley, he's once in a while maybe skates back to the puck a little slow. But other than that, like he's right into it. He's always doing the right thing into the corner. So it's a little shocking, even though he's such a great guy. But like 0 is, he can take 1 or 2. We won't hold it against him.
You know what? Good for him though. Like absolutely, it means he's moving his feet. He's not being lazy with his stick, getting into position. Morgan Riley's
Bang, maybe.
Huge. He's made huge strides this year in his defensive game, and just showing that he's not chasing the game and taking penalties is big. But even more of a saint was something that you sent me last week, CP. I wanted to talk about. So this is how and why Morgan Riley says thanks to the people who keep the Maple Leafs running. So each year, Morgan Riley treats members of the Maple Leafs medical and equipment staff to dinner himself out of his own pocket and his own kindness of his own heart, his own organization. He takes the trainers and a whole bunch of other medical staff and support
equipment,
staff.
Everyone basically.
From all around, and
scenes.
he takes them all out for a nice dinner. And he does this every single year. And he got this from former Leafs captain Dion Phaneuf, who used to do this, who took Riley under his wing when Riley was new in the organization. And he, taught him how to be a good pro. Morgan Riley absolutely got snuffed to be the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because if we could all go back right now, like if I can go forward, I don't think Austin needs to be the captain next. I think Morgan is our captain, and we should have known that from the very, very beginning. And he is the guy. That is it right there. He is so much better to listen to. He's got such a better track record of the type of player you want to be your captain. He's not dirty, but he is hard-nosed. Certainly less, like I wouldn't say Tavares is soft, but he's quiet. He's certainly collected. I would much prefer a guy like this who knows the ins and outs, who's been here the longest in the organization, to be the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I honestly think that if and when that time comes up, I think it should be Mo before the end of his tenure.
Yeah, it would depend to me at what point that is, because I feel like John Tavares is actually kind of the perfect captain for Toronto. Like the media mecca where they want to do is talk about quotes, and he basically gives them absolutely nothing, always.
Nothing.
So like I think that Marner's the great, like I think that probably most of the players believe like Riley is just like the actual captain in the room. He's been there the longest. He speaks with authority when he talks. He's kind of like doesn't take anything from anyone. So I think that it's a difference between like the public captain who wears the C and is probably good for this market. But I think that like most of the players respect him enough that he doesn't need it. It's not going to change anyone's opinion in the room. So if this was like after John Tavares is retired and like, I don't know, Matthews has not been the right player, then I think that, maybe, but I don't think the timing like aligns right. I think the time was to give it to him before when you gave it to Tavares, and he's kind of missed his time to get it. I think it probably just isn't. You're not going to strip Tavares of it like next year. I don't think when you're trying to negotiate and going to give you a sweetheart deal. Maybe the captaincy is part of that negotiation with Tavares. So I don't see it happening necessarily. Not that I don't like. He's one of my favorite players. I named my dog after this guy. Like he's truly one of my favorite players on the team, and I love him. As when he signed that 7.5, we all knew that he was the one guy who took a bit of a discount. And to this day, no one else has ever done it. So I think that he's just a true gem. But captaincy, I'm not sure. It's just the stars won't align for him. I don't think.
Yeah, you're probably right, and it's unfortunate, but they definitely dropped the ball.
Drop the ball.
That is your guy. You just see it time in, time out. And the debate was, it was going to be Matthews, but then he mooned those people, the security guard, and
we
got
talked about
himself
that too
into the
much.
trouble the summer before. So it had to be Tavares. It just had to be the guy you just paid $11 million. That makes sense. There was absolutely nobody else that could have taken the captaincy, not the longest tenured player in your locker room.
Yeah.
The guy who's, been here forever. And I just hate to think that they screwed it up back then, and maybe it's fine for the room and it doesn't really matter for the letters, but it matters for me. Okay.
Yeah. I think that it's a good player. Like, I don't think it matters to Riley. I think what matters to him is that the team does is the best possible. And I don't think he cares if there's a C on it. So there'd be other players where I wouldn't necessarily think that, where it probably would mean a lot to him, but I don't know if Riley really thinks about it.
Yeah, that's fair. So Nick Robertson is scratched again. He's wearing a scratch gray at Leafs practice this morning. That's going to be 3 missed games in a row, and Pontus Holmberg is dressed as the player to play. So what do you think of that? Right move, wrong move? What do you think's going on with Nicky Bobby?
I mean, it's kind of I think it's weird that it's gone on this long. I would have liked to maybe see a little bit more like flipping of the two. But to be honest, Holmberg's look better and better each game. So I think it might be part of the momentum you're building with Holmberg. And you've already tried to build momentum with Robertson, and it hasn't worked. Like he's not saying that he's been awful, but he's just been kind of the same all year, and I'm not sure that if you take him out and put him back in, if he'll be any different. Versus Holmberg seems to, the more games you play him, the better he'll be. So I think it's until Holmberg does something wrong, it's nice to have someone who's a little more defensively responsible. So I think, those are the reasons why. It's just a little shocking you haven't put him back in. Like, I wonder if maybe he's on his way out.
I was wondering the same thing. Is he trade bait? Is that why they haven't sent him back down yet? Because, why? He doesn't need waivers. You could just send him down to play games. Just like, hey, you're not going to play here, go play down there. Are they worried that maybe he'll get hurt and that'll just tank his trade value because he is prone to getting injured every year? That's something I've wondered with them keeping him on the bench and just keeping him in practice, trying to keep him from breaking.
Yeah, maybe. And it's more commonly to get hurt in the AHL. So especially for a guy like him. So that might be it. Another thing is it might be he hasn't deserved to be sent down. So possibly that you don't want to ruin his confidence if there's any there. So.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right, so our last thing on the Leafs here before we move on to our next segment is 3 stars of the week last week. Second star was Martin Jones. Martin Jones posted a 3-0-0 record, 0.66 goals against average, and a .976 save percentage with 1 shutout to help the Maple Leafs sweep a 3-game trip of California, stopping 81 of the 83 shots he faced. Martin Jones is getting the next start, and he's going to get the next start after that. He's going to get the next start, and then Joseph Woll is going to have to watch his back because Martin Jones is going to come in, and he's just going to light it up now. Where did this come from? How did we get this guy for $800K? Goalies are such voodoo. He's, it's amazing. Last year's save percentage was absolutely terrible. And this year, I believe he's got over a 900.
Yeah, he's had a lot of help. I think these games, about the teams weren't so hot, but also the team's been pretty hot playing for him. So especially defensively. So I think that it's a bit of both. And he's a goalie that like he knows how to do it. I forget how many games he has, but it's a ridiculous amount of games played.
Almost 500.
Yeah. So like he's not new to this. He's probably excited about having like he hasn't played for a team that actually plays defensively sound in front of him in a long time. So he's probably loving that. Yeah, I think that like I don't think that you should rely on him being the only goalie, but it's great to see that he still has it and maybe likes playing like the style of hockey that the Leafs play. Because that's a big part of hockey too. Is not all goalies fit for all teams. Like some goalies benefit more from different styles of playing in front of them. So I don't know, maybe he's found a sweet spot. Like he was doing awful playing for the Marlies. So like I think that might be it. Like his style is kind of everything, and I don't know. It definitely cooled the market down on this. We need a trade to a goalie tomorrow. So yeah, I think he's been amazing, deserving of the second star. I don't know what Reinhart did, but he deserved the first star.
Do you think that Tree Living looks into giving Martin Jones another contract for next year, maybe even a multi-year contract to play backup for the Leafs for a couple of years going forward before the season ends with this run of play?
I mean, I wouldn't get it out of hand like giving it to him too soon. But if by the end of the year he had still been your backup and he plays that role well, then I could see that, yeah, maybe you do go with a 2-year deal, just not a lot more money, like still a variable contract. But anything more than everyone was expecting a $5 million backup had to come in here to be Wool's backup. So if you could only spend like just over $1 million on Martin Jones, and that does the job. He's a veteran that knows all the things to teach a young goalie everything. So yeah, I could see that he would get maybe not a lot of money, but yeah, more than 1 year. I'd do it for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
He
also
also
way into being the goalie coach one day. Leafs goalie coach.
Not every player can get a job as an employee, Ted.
Come
We
on,
get
I've
those
seen
enough
it. Come
too
on,
often.
this is what happened. This is what I'm learning as the more I follow the Leafs.
Yeah, it was
just
very
sign when
Leafy
you're
of
old
you.
and you can come work for the team.
Yeah.
yeah, you
Scouts,
got
coaches.
it, Ted.
Yeah.
He's picking up things. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
picking up things. He watches it from the outside. Hey, we're too close. He just sees all this from the outside. He gets seeing trends. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
he's not. This isn't individual. I see patterns here. He says. So, you're probably not wrong.
Yeah, he's probably bang on, actually.
Yeah, for sure. Martin Jones, goalie coach of the future. Look for that.
Heard it here first.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's all I have for the Leafs. Any final thoughts on the Leafs for the week, Ted or CP?
Not really. Glad to get 6 points, though, out of that road trip. That was really big for the Leafs. So get to play the Sharks again. So hopefully that goes well. Get 8 points out of these Western teams, and then gets a little harder from there. So we'll see kind of how the Islanders and Colorado, Ted's favorite team, see how that goes too. So
Yeah,
tougher
can't wait for that one.
matches again. Yeah, can't wait for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Leafs play the Avalanche. I believe it's the 16th. That's going to be a great game for our show. The first ever Toronto versus Colorado game since we've had our show together, a Colorado Avalanche and Toronto Maple Leafs show. So this will be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Anyways, why don't we get into
North of the blue line.
So you know what's crazy, boys? Only one team in the league hasn't lost in overtime.
Wow.
That team is the Ottawa Senators.
Oh wow.
That's the unbelievable part, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is more
Wow.
unbelievable than the stat itself.
Are
Yeah,
you gonna say the Rangers or the Golden Knights?
like a good team or something.
yeah. The Sens.
No, you're Ottawa Senators. They're 14, 21, and 0 this season. Not good. 7 games below 500, but 0 overtime losses this season. So, I mean, I give them that, I guess. I think you just try and push every game to overtime. They might get more wins. But they've only got 28 points on the season. They made trades and signings over the offseason, and that included Vladimir Tarasenko and Dominic Kubalik. Both those players are unrestricted free agents at the end of the year. So Do you think that Ottawa's going to sell on these guys? And who do you think would be interested in a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko or Dominic Kubalik?
Yeah, I think that they better sell on them because they're no good this year. So
Yeah.
they probably don't have enough overtime wins because they're not good enough to get to overtime most of the time. So yeah, you got to sell. I mean, if you yeah, it's cut deep. Uh, if you're not good enough to make the playoffs, you better sell on anything that you can possibly sell on. That isn't ruining your future, and I don't think either of these guys are. Kubalik's younger, obviously, but he's not young enough that I'd be worried about it. And they just got him, so get more assets. This team's obviously not done building, so yeah, I would go for it.
Yeah, I think I'm right on the same page there. Is especially a guy like Tarasenko. I think he was brought in because there was a chance they could have been sneaky good this year, as we said, and pieces like that would have really helped it. But we're not seeing it fall into place for Ottawa. So sell, sell, sell.
What do you guys think that those players would be worth individually?
Individually, it's hard to like. Depends on how they play, like leading up to this trade deadline for sure. Because I could see them both going for around a first rounder at their peak if they're playing that well. If they're not though, then like a second or a third. I think if they're have a rough go here leading up, so somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Like I think that there is a playoff team that wants these players though. Like the Rangers seem to always need a winger, so they've got always a young lineup. So they might want to add a veteran like Tarasenko. I don't know.
There last year. That
Yeah.
didn't work out so well.
Well, I wouldn't say it didn't work out like at all. It's just like they didn't really work out. But I think when it comes to a playoff player, Tarasenko fits that more than like Patrick Kane did. Their other
He's
acquisition.
cursed.
Yeah.
Apparently,
He's cursed. Yeah, Rangers are good. They get Patrick Kane. They're terrible. Detroit's good this year. They get Patrick Kane. They're terrible. It's Patrick Kane, guys. He's the common denominator.
Isn't that funny? Like to just go on Patrick Kane for a second. Like he has been pretty awesome since joining Detroit, but since he's joined, they've just slumped like crazy. So like, it comes to make me think that even like, is he playing in a like? Is he a team player? Is that a guy that really can put you over as a team? Like he's showing that he's putting up points, but it seems like he's a detriment to whatever team he's on. But,
yeah, for sure. So I could see Tarasenko or Kubalik at their low end going for minimum third round picks or B level prospects. But I think it's probably going to be somewhere in that mushy middle. You'll probably get a second roundish pick or comparable value for both players when it comes to deadline time. Barring major improvement in their play, like you mentioned, but major improvement in their play might cause a player like Dominic Kubalik to even get a new contract from the Ottawa Senators, because as you said, he's not old. Vladimir Tarasenko is probably more than likely on his way out the door. So the Vancouver Canucks, they're first in the Pacific, second in the West. They seem like a damn near perfect team. What are they missing?
It's funny because they're really mixing things up. They've put Pettersson up on the left wing with JT Miller, which is actually, it's funny. That was a line before that they used to get out of trouble. And now all these players like Pettersson, Brock Besser with JT Miller as their centerman, they're all playing their best of their career, and they put them together, and it seems to still be working. Like they're still playing in the best of their career. So it'll be interesting. I don't know like why the big mix up. That seems like a shake up that like Pettersson is a centerman, so putting him on a left wing seems like just like a temporary thing. But until then, like they are trying things. This team I think is still missing like a really good defenseman. Zadorov is injured at the moment, but everyone made a big deal out of him, but he was just what he was before. He's like a sixth defenseman. So he's not necessarily upgrading a huge ton. So if they're going to do something, I'd say it's that, or they potentially Kuzmenko seems to be out of favor there. So that might be a guy that's out the door to get something else because he's got a bit of a cap hit. So it makes some room to do some other things. But he gets scratched every like few games.
That's fair. Do you agree with that, Ted?
I was thinking defense for sure, and whether that's a big name defender that comes in and starts, and then they have to But I mean, not like they don't have good defense in Vancouver, but adding something like a bigger name than Zadorov, yeah, like somewhere in the middle or a real big name could be a good shift that they need. I don't know, but to me, that I love that kind of big three thing that they're doing up top, because I know all about that, and
Yeah.
it's a good way to do it. Just throw your best three players right up front and let everything roll.
Yeah, the thing,
Yeah.
I just feel like Pedersen is a true centerman, so it's odd to have him on a wing. Where like with the Avalanche, like all those guys kind of fit perfectly on that line. Like they both Landeskog and Ranton can play center, but really are wingers, right? So yeah, I wouldn't want them to go too far. They have probably the best, like sorry, not the best, but one of the best defensive pairings in Quinn Hughes and Philip Warnick, right? But then it's kind of a drop off after that when it comes to puck moving. There's a lot of big defenders that do like the stuff in front of the net, but when it comes to behind their net and trying to move a puck out, they lack in that department.
Yeah, Philip Hronek's a great player, but I don't know if he should be on the same line as Quinn Hughes. I think they're kind of similar in players. He's obviously not as good. He doesn't play the same, like Hronek doesn't play the same game as Quinn Hughes, but he's an offensive-minded player. He can move the puck, but again, he's not. Neither one of them are great, and I think they'd benefit with being on separate lines. Obviously, whatever is going on in Canucks Nation is working. They're first in the Pacific, second in the West. If last year when they went through that coaching kerfuffle and Rick Tocchet came in, if I set a bet down for the Canucks to be first in the Pacific this year, would you have taken it?
Being a Canucks fan, I would want to, but I mean, it was tough. Like, you know, it seemed like a bunch of players that didn't want to play together. So making a couple trades, you know, moving like some players out that didn't align with the players that you were re-signing. So I think a few things had to come together to make this team what it is. But what a bet. If you could have placed a bet last year at a betting website, I'm sure that would have been a crazy number. You would have made a lot of money. Not off me, though.
Would you have taken those odds, Ted?
If you said, if you were like, I'll I think Vancouver's going to be up there at the start of the year before any games have been played and stuff, I would have said, sure, let's take, we'll see. Yeah. And then you would have won.
I
would have won that.
I wouldn't have. I'd have been like, no, you're crazy. Vancouver sucks. They sucked last year.
Well, that's what I mean.
I
know you wouldn't have even put that offer up to me, but if you were crazy enough to do it, I would have been like, sure, if you want to give me your money. But then you would have been taking the money.
Yeah, exactly. So, so that's fair enough. So moving on to the Edmonton Oilers. They're currently on a 7-game heater. They are only tied for the second wild card. They're tied with the Kraken and Blues. The Blues are they're 2 games less than the Blues and 3 games less played than the Kraken, though. So they're tied for that second wild card spot, but they do have games in hand. Now, for the first wild card spot, currently that's the Nashville Predators. The Edmonton Oilers have played 4 games less than Nashville, and they're only 4 points back of the Nashville Predators. To get third place in their division, the Kings are 5 points up with the same amount of games played, so that's probably not going to happen. But if the playoffs were to start today, it'd be Edmonton-Winnipeg in the first round. If they ended up in the first wildcard spot, which kind of seems likely with their trajectory, and everyone else remain the same, we could have an Oilers versus Avs or Oilers-Canucks first round matchup.
Nice. Yeah,
Nice.
I'd take that.
Yeah,
I feel confident with that.
That's a tough one. All those 3 of those teams I think are like powerhouses. So the Oilers have a chance against anyone. That's the thing. Like Connor McDavid has at any point can just control a game. Leon Draisaitl, like he really decides when he wants to be the best player in the world, but he can be at certain points. So I think that I hope that they make a move for Canada's sake. They make a move because when it comes to playoffs, I always just cheer for Canada. I'm not necessarily. I always cheer for the Leafs too, but I think that they still need a defenseman. Yeah, like I have to pick someone, right?
Sorry.
So yeah, I think that they still need defense. but they have a chance against anyone.
Oh, that's fair. So the Winnipeg Jets, they're first in the West, 56 points in 39 games despite not having Kyle Connor. They're a legit threat to win the Central. Do you think they're a legit threat to win the Central, or do you think they're going to turn into a pumpkin, Ted, as a Central team fan yourself?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they are a team that's going to maybe not stay, like they're probably arguably, and I would say the hottest team right now at this moment of recording, of how crazy the wins have been and just how crazy they look for a team that I wasn't even expecting. I would say they don't keep it
No one was
as
expecting.
fiery. What's that?
I said no one was expecting this.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think they keep it as fiery, but I think, yeah, they remain a contender and someone to watch out for, because when they want to turn it on, apparently they really can.
Yeah, so we'll have to see if the Jets can keep going there, and when they get Connor back, they're just going to be even more threatening. Be interesting to see if they add at the deadline. They're hot right now, and it'll be interesting to see if Colorado can come through and win the Central Division, or if Winnipeg's just going to take a stranglehold.
I know.
Just buzz through a couple more here before we get to the Avs to finish the show. Montembeault made a huge save the other night against the Zibanejad's Forsberg attempt in a shootout. Did you boys see that?
I didn't,
No.
but I've heard of multiple people talk about it now.
Oh, yeah, it was huge. Big reach back save. Montembeault seems to be the goalie of the future. So both
big
of
time.
us, both of our teams, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Colorado Avalanche, could use a second goalie, another goalie around. Now, he does have a considerable cap hit with him, but what would you pay to have Jake Allen on your team?
I think that, I mean, I would probably, if it's just for the remainder of the season, like, I don't know, Nick Robertson, I'm always trying to trade him. So, like, I'd give up Nick Robertson for goalie insurance if it came with maybe a re-sign, and that's like a replacement for Jones. We were just talking about that Martin Jones would be like the backup here next year, but I don't know. Jake Allen's definitely, I know I want to give Jones, like, dig on him too much because he's been playing so good, but Jake Allen in the past few years have been a much better goalie. So I don't think he's the right goalie for the Leafs. So I'm not sure that I would trade anything for him right now.
I was going to say a similar thing to the Avs. I don't think he's exactly a fit for the Avs, so I don't know if I would trade anything for him. But if it did come down to it and the Avs did see it, someone who actually is making decisions in the organization figured, hey, this is the guy. I don't know. There's a few pieces we've talked about moving on the Avs over the last little while. And then some complications came in, like around Sammy G. He was a guy we were talking about moving last year even for pieces here and there. And there's been talk around him, but then he had his things. But I don't know. It's got to be, if we're looking for just the end of the year, like it's got to be like picks and prospects or something. Like if we're just looking to add a goalie to go and win a cup with or something, like
Not even
I just
high
don't think
picks
he's
either,
a
right?
What's that?
Not
And we
high
don't have
picks
many.
either, though, right?
Yeah, we have.
The thing is, he's probably going to
We'll
go
talk
for
about
like a
that
first.
in the next what the Avs have. They actually have plenty of picks, and I think that he's probably going to go for something like a third or a fourth
No
somewhere.
way. There's way too many teams that want a goalie. I think his price
with a
gets hiked
prospect.
way
Yeah,
up.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to go for any higher than that. Not if he doesn't go till the deadline. Maybe if a team can get the rest of the year out of him, like now, but like in March, like I don't think he goes for that. Especially not as insurance of like if a playoff team's a playoff team. I don't know. I just can't. Like Marc-Andre Fleury went for a third-round pick a few years ago. He's Marc-Andre Fleury.
No one needed a goalie though.
Oh yeah.
The market tells a lot.
I mean, I'm sure people would have taken Marc-Andre Fleury, but that's just how it worked out at the time, right? So it'd be hard to see him going for like a first-round pick or anything like that. Is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So the last one I have here, touching on the Flames. This is wild. This is from Brian Costello. It says, this is the wildest stat I've ever seen in a while. I guess that's not what it says. This is the wildest stat I've seen in a while, because that's terrible grammar, the first thing I said. It says, Nathan McKinnon has 27 points in the time since Jonathan Huberdeau got his last point on November 30th.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable.
That's
Is
awful for
Huberdeau done? Does that scare us for tree living? First question. Is Huberdeau done?
Like, yeah.
In what
I
sense?
mean, this is This is tough to come back from career-wise, right? Like you're asking, like career-wise, like what's his next contract look like
No,
after all this?
is he going to be good
Like,
through the
is
rest of
he
his
ever?
8 years?
I was gonna say he's locked up forever. There's no next contract.
He's yeah. I don't know. I know someone
Do you
going to
see
buy
a
him out.
resurgence?
I mean, to a sense, he's not gonna be this player. I don't think. He will benefit. I think for maybe because he's not going anywhere. No one's trading for him. He makes too much money. He's not going to retire, so he's going to be around. So I think he ebbs and flows with how Calgary does. But I don't think that he's ever going to be what a lot of people thought he was, as like a star player that can lead a team. He's not the guy that was in Florida, and I could see him maybe turning into a 60-point player in certain years. And like he might be happy with that, but that's just awful
For
$11
$11 million. Yeah.
So,
Great.
Yep.
yeah.
It could be the
gotta-
Johnny Gaudreau thing
If it
where
gets worse and worse, like why wouldn't they buy him out at some point? Like get it off the books, get him out of your system. Like if
so
it gets
much
worse,
for forever.
Yeah, it'd be so much for so long. Oh,
Yeah.
that would just cripple Calgary. And it's not like they have the money to pay for a player that's not going to play.
And they want to go for it every year. They're never a team that wants to rebuild. I don't know. That's a tough
They
one.
might be now with going into the future, but certainly is going to be interesting because that may even mean that another team gets a Ryan Johansson deal on Huberdeau, 50% retained, and he goes and plays the last maybe 2-3 years of his contract somewhere else at $5.5 million or whatever, right? What does he make? Because what is it like? He makes like 10.5 or something, so it's like 5.25, yeah, something like that. Like so, like a stupid amount of money. But like that's not bad. Forget like I mean Ryan Johansson's making 4 right now, right? And when the cap's all the way up, and who knows, that may just be the situation.
But like he's gonna end up this year with like what? Like I don't even know if he's good with 30 points. You know, like $5.5 million is just not what you pay for that player. Like, is he gonna get 30 points? I don't know. He's gone so
how
long.
many does he have right now? Like total.
Well, I don't know. Nate McKinnon has 27 since he's got his last
one. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad either way. That's not good. Like just so you know. Yeah, out there.
No, not good. Anyways, that's what I have for this edition of North of the Blue Line. We will get into some Avs. So for now, that's it for
North of the Blue Line.
So let's check in with our friends in the West and producer Ted's favorite team, the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah.
I have a tweet here from a reporter in Adrian Dater and from what I believe is a fan in Michael Harrison, touching on the same subject. And it's the goalie. It says from Adrian Dater, I don't think defense is the problem right now for Avs. It's the goaltending position. Avs have allowed 6th fewest shots per game in the league at 28.8. Michael Harrison then goes to point out, the Colorado Avalanche at 5v5 are 4th in goals for, 10th in Corsi against, 10th in scoring chances against, 10th in high danger chances against, 24th in save percentage. You have a goalie problem. The Avs have been good, not great defensively, and elite offensively. This isn't on the team. So that's from a fan and a reporter. And the other night they dropped a stinker. It was a very high scoring game.
Yeah.
And it was crazy to see. But would you agree with that the Avs are starting to run into a point where they may have a goalie problem?
Yes and no. Because I mean that other night was obviously bad. It was 8-4, I think was the final, and that was a game they started Ivan Prosvetov, and I mean he was kind of what opened the floodgates. And Georgie's numbers aren't great, but he does have the most wins in the league, and I mean that's kind of what it comes down to at the end of every game is who wins. And if the team gets 12 shots and they score 4 goals, but you still win 5-4, you still won, and that's 2 points. So I don't know. It's tough for me to say because we won a cup with Darcy Kemper. So I don't know. I don't think we have a goaltending problem at all. What's that?
So these aren't even Darcy Kemper numbers, though. You know, it's been a little bit worse than that. So
No, I think his numbers. I mean, his numbers were very like comparable. They weren't even. They were not good either. But and it even it's the wins though. Like in the playoffs, what do you got to do? You got to win. Uh, the the stuff like that. I mean, if we're scoring, which we are, we when we score, I made this point on another one of our episodes. The Avs are 3.94 goals for per game. Even when we lost 8-4, we scored 4 goals. We score about 4 goals every game. So, on average, I don't know. I don't think it's a problem. Is my answer.
Okay, so Alexander, here's to answer the question we were talking about. Is he better or worse than Darcy Kemper? This year, Alexander Georgiev, his goals against are 2.95, and he's got an 895 save percentage. So if we look up Darcy Kemper, the year that he won the Cup with the Avs, he had a 2.54 and a 921 in the regular season.
The full regular season, yes.
Yeah, in the regular season. And I don't see the playoff stats here, but in the playoffs, I believe it was similar and closer to 900, and I think that was a big topic that the Avs didn't get goaltending, and that was not the reason they won the Cup. So I think you're right. I think your guys are kind of both right because Kemper was elite that year. It clearly shows, even though it's only 2.5, it's 2.54 goals against, which isn't like super low, but at a 921 save percentage, that's tops in the league. So he was some of the best in the league to lead them there. They're certainly not getting that from Georgie right now, and hopefully the team can just coast through and still get that 900-ish save percentage and go on another Cup run. I'm not sure they have a huge problem, but I keep pushing and pushing that the Avs could definitely use a second reliable goaltender. Somebody like it was nice when Frank Huzov was a option, right? Like Frankie, he's a guy that Francouz, that's his name. But he was a nice option last year, a couple of years ago in the playoffs. Played a couple of games. He was steady. It'd be nice for the Avs to not have to rely on Prosvetov to fill that, because I'm not sure that he's that guy this year either.
No.
I just don't know whether he's got that in him. So it'd be really nice for them to get a second goaltender.
Yeah,
Jake
second
Allen
one would
might
be nice, but like just to take some weight off. But yeah, I mean, we've seen Georgie do it before, play a lot of the games and end up with the most wins in the league at the end of the year, and yeah, I don't know. It's I like this guy, and I see him go through struggles, and we have these games that run up stats, but overall, he's winning games for us.
I think Jake Allen's like a pretty good option for the Avs. Like we've talked about Markstrom in the past, and I think that's for the cap hit and the goalie that you're actually getting might be too much because he's going to expect to be the starter. Where Jake Allen, like he's been a backup before in times, and I think that he might fit in well with that kind of to the goalie, like to be the 1B, I think, and playoff comes and you just kind of go with the guy that is going, and if it's like Webby said, it's only going to be like a third, or I don't think it's going to be a fourth, but a third round pick is like a great option just as like a little bit of a safety net just in case things go awry, because this is a team that like those numbers are great for like as an offense. They're just like top of the league. Defensively top of the league. I think it would be a shame if even if they lost Georgie and Prosvetov had to be the goalie. Like then we're talking about maybe can't get it done. But
yeah, God forbid you have a goalie injury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine?
I mean, yeah. Hopefully we could luck into something like the Martin Jones situation. Some guy
it's
we
always possible.
signed and passed through waivers and came back.
You could have had him.
Played amazing. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have picked him up. Yeah, they could have for $100,000.
Yeah,
But they decided not to. So the next thing I want to talk about is Julian McKenzie, who's he's a Flames writer for The Athletic, and he's also he's the host of the CJ show, Chris Johnson show. He wrote for The Athletic, this is just a blurb. He says, I think it's likely that the Flames get a first-round pick and a lesser prospect, or a higher quality prospect and a lower draft pick for Elias Lindholm. Now, the Avs have been rumored to be interested in Lindholm, and the Avs usually go out and get what they want. So I wouldn't see why, if they want this guy, that they wouldn't get him when they have the cap space available. And we talked about picks earlier. They have the draft capital. They have this year a first, a fourth, fifth, sixth, and a seventh. Next year, they have a first, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and a seventh.
Wow.
So they're missing their second next year and their second and their third this year, but they still have picks that they could use, like a first round pick right there. So this year's first round pick and a lesser prospect. I mean, who's somebody you could think of that would be a lesser prospect, Ted, that would be able to go in this Elias Lindholm trade?
Oh, geez. I don't know. There could be a lot. Ben Myers. I don't know, man. There's a lot.
Yeah.
We've got quite a few guys in the system.
I wonder if
honestly.
Malinsky, because you've got so many D and he already looks good, like he's a lesser prospect, doesn't have a huge ceiling, but he can play. He's still kind of a prospect. I wonder if a first round pick and a guy like Sam Malinsky gets it done in that aspect.
I think that
Maybe.
would definitely that'd be a bit more than I think a lower end prospect. Like, I think they could probably get away with like something a little less than adding the Malinsky. That would definitely get it done, though. I think.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think
I
think maybe
Malinsky a
Ben
lot,
Myers
yeah.
is a stretch. I think you're just trying to dump him off because you hate Ben Myers. But like,
He
that's
doesn't have a
totally
place
different
anymore. There's no
story.
place for him in our organization. Like, we filled all the spots. Like, they have him
So
playing
he
sometimes on
admits
the
it.
left wing on like the fourth line, and it doesn't make sense. It's like he doesn't need. He shouldn't be there.
Yeah. Is he still a prospect? How old
I
is
don't know.
he
It's
now?
like we signed him out of college, and he played that like playoffs for us because we were able to do that, and then played with us the next year, but then this was with the Eagles because he got ousted.
Yeah. So I wonder, even if not doing that, I wonder if you could get like a first and a fourth for Elias Lindholm.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe
Some combo of picks too.
a first this year and a third next year, which leaves him with a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth, seventh this year. A first, a fourth, a fifth, and a seventh. First, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh next year. So that's still lots of picks. They can still get some prospects in their system, especially if they have confidence in their scouts and their later round picks. Fourth round picks aren't nothing. Guys still come in and play in the NHL. So if you have good scouts and you rely on that, then certainly that's valuable. And it could be valuable going out the door as well as a third round pick or a fourth round pick added to that first round pick to get Elias Lindholm. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be a prospect that goes back for Calgary. I think they would be just as happy right now taking picks. We talked about they might not rebuild. But this is what I wanted to get into, is I think that Calgary might just be at that point where, like, if they're going to start sending everybody out the door, maybe they're going to be more willing to take picks and be a little more patient. They still have to ice a product that people want to come see, so they got guys like Jonathan Huberdeau, who hopefully can get back to it, and Nazem Kadri and Mackenzie Weegar, but maybe they'll just sell, and take Colorado's first and third and a sixth or something for... You know, like, who knows? That could be the trade for Elias Lindholm. Would you be willing to do something like that, Ted?
I'm starting to like the picks. I don't know, like the fact we have no second round picks for a little while, and then the third, like if we get rid of that, we're starting to, and of course a first that's going to be included. We're starting to get a little slim on those for the next couple of years. But like I said, we do have a lot of prospects right now. Like I was really happy with the picks the Avs made at the most recent draft, and so I don't know, man. I guess I'd be happy with it because we do need some, like a pickup like Elias Lindholm. I think would be a really good fit for the Avs.
Yeah, they actually have a ton of prospects, and I mean, you even have like a guy like Riley Tufte might even be considered. He's like 25, but he hasn't really got a shot. He might go.
True.
You got a couple of guys playing in the juniors, Callum Ritchie and Jeremy Hansel. Those guys could potentially be guys that go with the door. So I don't know, man. Like you see a whole bunch of names here. I mean, Malinsky's still considered a prospect. Even Oscar Olason's considered a prospect. But yeah, there's definitely guys that could be included in that I think are the lesser name that you could attach to a first rounder and get Elias Lindholm.
It's true.
So the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about was Mikko Rantanen is up for a deal, and now that William Nylander has signed his deal at $11.5 million, what is Mikko Rantanen going to make? Is it going to be Matthews money?
I think we'll see something similar in that wheelhouse of Willie, because we've got Nate making 12.5.
Yeah, you can't make more than that.
Exactly. That's the thing, is I don't think he's going to make more than Nate. But and that's maybe the centerman winger thing, but he does play center every now and then. And we saw Willie do that, and there was talks of that at the start. Maybe he'll center line, and he did for a bit. And Rantanen's done that. He's centered a line and all that stuff. But I think, yeah, like somewhere around like the 11.5, even 12, like right
12.
around. Yeah, 12 kind of seems to sit about right. Because he's up there. Like, I mean, we see it in fantasy drafts. We see it in the top scoring of the league. Like, he's right up around the top 10. Like, Rantanen is up there. He's elite. Like maybe not as like he's not like on the McDavid, McKinnon level, but he's like right there, like right under there.
For sure, and consistently has been doing it. Like I think he has, like if you're comparing it to Willie, like he has a way better resume. So I think that he's got to be over Willie if anyone in the league even compares contract to Toronto, because I think they're just a whole other world in their own. Like seems like everybody else has their own rules, and the Leafs have a different set of rules. But
yes.
If you're comparing to that, he's got to be more than Willie and less than McKinnon. So
well, you know,
perfect.
His agent's going to compare to that. His agent is 100% going to say, "Hey, look at this." A comparable says, but I don't know if there is an actual special terms for the Leafs, and the team goes, "Come on now, that's the Toronto Maple Leafs price. That's not our price."
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's how that works, but you know his agent's going to go, "Well, if William Nylander makes 11.5, Mikko's worth 13 and a half, right?" And now, you know, whether he's not going to get more than Nate McKinnon, I'm not sure that that's true or not, because you know, he's, like you guys said, a top 10 player in the league consistently year after year. He just scored 50. And he plays on the top line. He's got a cup. His team's constantly chasing the cup, and it's a big reason's him. I don't see him making, if he makes less than McKinnon, he's going to make 12.5, like not 12.6, but he's going to make that money. He's definitely going to make over $12.5 million, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it over 13.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just based on like the McKinnon one, I think that you can like no one would ever have a contract higher than McDavid on Edmonton. Like I don't care what Leon Draisaitl says. Like, and if it's within a couple years, like I could see a contract that's 8 years old. Like you can, say that like, okay, but like everything's reset by then. But like McKinnon's contract's fairly new.
I
don't know.
On
It'd
his
be a
last
tough
one, he took a bit of a sweetheart on his last one to kind of like, hey, we want more stars on this team, so I'm gonna. And then the next one, he's like, I want to be the highest paid player in the NHL. And we're like, yeah, we get it now, Nate. Like,
we understand.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, with Rantanen, and I think at that time when he was on that kind of sweetheart deal on his last one, I believe Rantanen was making more than him. So I mean, it was happening at one time, so it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for Rantanen to be making more than Nate, but.
McKinnon's first deal, though, just like it aged so quickly. It was like within a year or two, and you're just like, how did he sign for so low? Like, it just didn't make sense. So, like, immediately after he signed that contract, and it was all just because of a down year, right? So those things happen. So it wouldn't be out of this world for him to get more than McKinnon. Like, he is like Webby said, a top 10 player, and. So, yeah, I could see it. But I think 12 or 12.25, like, I think the team would argue really heavily against the under McKinnon number.
Up higher, more than that. He's going to make more than 12.25. I think he's going to make more than McKinnon. I think that's just the way the league is headed. And I think the Stars are going to start to take more and more money, especially when the cap goes up a few million this year, a few million next year. I honestly think that he's going to. I think that he's going to take probably 13 plus. That's my opinion. But yeah, so that's all I've got for the Avs. Any closing thoughts here?
Yeah, I don't know. I just want to keep seeing them string together wins and scoring lots of goals, because that's what we need to do. A second goalie, if we can get someone to take some weight off Georgie's shoulders, I am not opposed to it.
So right now they're losing 1-0 to Boston. 8 minutes left in the first. So we will get Ted out of here so he can go watch this game. And we will be back to cover the Leafs after the Leafs game tomorrow night, however you're listening. Tuesday night. That's when it's happening.
That's relevant either way.
Either way. We'll be back. We're back every Leafs post game. So we'll be back to cover the Leafs versus Sharks. That's a wrap for tonight. Thank you for joining us on Split the Defense Hockey Podcast. Please make sure to like this podcast on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. Subscribe on YouTube. Rate us 5 stars anywhere else. Find us on X at STDP Hockey and search for Split the Defense everywhere else to stay up to date with what we're doing. See you next time. Peace.
Peace.
You've been listening to
Split the Defense.
a Toronto Maple Leafs, Colorado Avalanche, and NHL podcast. Hosted by Jordan Webster, Craig Pearce, and producer Ted Evans.
Split the Defense.
Is presented by LaForest Electrical Contractors. Professional and efficient service since 2004. Serving the Kingston and surrounding areas.